All right, let's talk more Browns football. Reggie Rucker is here. And, guys, I just have two words to say. Do you know what the savior for this town is right now? Byron Scott.
Cavs basketball?
I got nothing. 0-2 start, Reggie. This is not what anybody expected.
Worst nightmare, actually. And I'm not a person that looks at the schedule, but I started looking at the schedule. It's rough. It is rough going forward. This football team is going to have to circle the wagons and really come up with some creative plays offensively and defensively if they're going to get some, I'm not going to say some wins, but maybe one win, maybe two wins.
You're right. Reggie, when we look at this game, let's go. We can go back to a week ago. We have different quarterback this week. Same offense, though, where you move the ball in the first half, second half, 0 points, 2 weeks in a row. I know we've talked about what defenses are going to do against the Browns, but are they making offensive changes at halftime that you've seen so far?
No, I haven't seen the adjustment on the fly that I would like to see. But let's go with the first point, the quarterback in this offense. I would have thought that with Seneca Wallace that you would have done some things to take advantage of those unique skills that he showed us during the preseason. What I'm beginning to be concerned about is when football teams get into actual play, when they get into games that count, then you see everybody tightening up just a little bit and not playing and not freewheeling as one might say with respect to some of the downfield stuff, some of the things that we've seen or we've heard about, the different formations, vanilla kind of offense, bump and run, both guys on the outside, put 7 and 8 in the box, and dare the Browns to beat you with the run.
Your starting wide receivers have done virtually nothing in the first 2 weeks. Your best wide receiver today is Josh Cribbs. What does that tell you?
It tells you you're in trouble because we talked about needing a lead receiver and a playmaker out there, and what bothers me about this offense is you have two players who have basically the same kinds of skills in Massaquoi and Robisky. And so there's not a move guy, there's not a crossing guy, there's not a speed guy. You have just two tall guys who do not have very good escape skills because they're young people. And then, so teams, take away the inside and bump and run them, and that is all you're going to see. Those receivers had better be glad they didn't play when I played, when they could push you and grab you all over the field. They'd never make a catch.
But on that, you can go right to Eric Mangini on that, because you can say, okay, Braylon Edwards is not here anymore, Kellen Winslow is not here anymore, and he drafted both of those guys. I mean, there's no question if you're going to say why the wide receivers aren't good, that's got to be on Eric Mangini. True?
Well, he's got to take some of that, but you've got to push some of that off now to personnel. Because if Eric Mangini doesn't have control of the final 53, then that responsibility falls upon the person that does. And if that's Tom Heckert, they knew. And if you didn't know, you should have been watching this show, because I've been telling you, you don't have anybody that can play on the outside that's going to scare the living daylights out of anybody out there playing corner.
Yeah, Reggie, when I looked at this game, the thing that bothered me a little bit was that we knew all these coaches knew each other. They all came up together. Matt Castle's not a great quarterback. He threw some terrible passes early in the game. It just seemed like both teams knew each other so well that it became a boring, non-athletic game suddenly. And that bothered me that neither team opened it up a little bit.
I was thinking that at halftime, Matt Castle should have sent Bill Belichick a letter thanking him for the $53 million. Yes. because if a guy gets hurt, he gets a chance to play under the very best coach that's alive today and gets an opportunity to put up some numbers and make someone else want him. Now, when given the chance, the guy has a great arm. He can throw the football. But I saw too much indecision there. I saw questionable plays that Castle made in that first half. And, of course, you have to give Kansas City the benefit of having made the proper adjustments at halftime, because I think they won the football game when they came out in the second half, drove for a touchdown.
Just being a little bit positive about this, you can't blame the defense. They didn't give up a touchdown today. You give up a couple field goals, you should win a game.
Yeah. Well, yes, and I'm sorry, that's right. They didn't score. They put 3 points on the board, and you're right. The defense has played very well, but of course the caliber of team that they've been playing has not been what we would think are playoff teams. So we're going to see pretty quickly here as they get into playing against Baltimore and New England, Cincinnati, and that group that's coming up.
You've brought those names up. I'm going to ask the question.
Sure.
Is that all right?
That's all right.
We're 0-2, and we don't want to look too far ahead, but until you get up to the bye week, every team that they play coming up, Reggie, all teams that had over 500 records last season, teams that think they're going to go to the playoffs, you have a GM or a president, excuse me, who's still called coach in the building, and you have a coach that was a lame dunk just 9 months ago, where does this go for Eric Mangini and his coaching staff? Because a lot of people are going to ask questions about Brian Daboll tomorrow and say, why can't you score in the second half, and why aren't you moving the ball against Tampa Bay and Kansas City?
Well, one of the things I said, I think, Andy, you and I did the show, and we talked about the options going forward if Holmgren keeps Mangini, and then he decided to. Well, what happens now is that you have about 6 games. Bye week is after the 6th game, isn't it?
After the 8th.
After the 8th game? Okay, thank you. What if this team is 1-7 or 0-8 going into the bye week? You know how restless these fans have been. You know how ugly it gets here. There could be an opportunity there. I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves, and Eric Mangini has a chance to turn this thing around, but he's got a tall order ahead of him. But I think a scenario of if it got real ugly, then you might have to see the president stepping down, and he may put interim. He may put interim on next to his name, okay. And then there's some people out there, and I've heard the name of John Gruden being tossed around very much recently, associated with this team.
0-4 was what you said last week. That would be the key. Yeah. True? For Mangini, 0-4, you said that might be the place where...
I would think the heat would begin to come at 0-4, but you could see a strong possibility of something happening at game number 8 and then a bye week coming after, because traditionally if you're going to make a move, then you need a couple of weeks for the transition period. And it's just sad that we're already talking about this, and we're schedule gazing, and we're looking at what might happen. You don't know what's going to really happen because things take place in the National Football League you have no control over, and so again you may thought you were out of, you're in. So we'll see, but you gotta think right now, without a starting quarterback, this team is in real trouble.
Well, in my opinion, I just don't know if Mike Holmgren wants to put his name and his record on this team. Maybe you know what I'm saying? I mean, maybe down the road when the team has more players like his, but maybe he uses a guy like Brad Seeley. Rob Ryan's obviously here. I just don't see Mike Holmgren putting his name on this team right
Unless
now.
he wants it permanently.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And there are some people here that could have interim behind their names and then go out on the market and get the guy you want, get the guy that brings the philosophy. Because you see, what is going on here and what is wrong with this football team is you had one of the preeminent passing minds in the National Football League over the last 20 years, and Mike Holmgren sitting upstairs, and you've got a very basic, archaic pass offense down on the field. The two just do not connect, and therefore there's got to be something that's going to happen, and you know the golden rule, right? You found that out?
Oh, yeah,
What's the golden rule?
The guy that makes the most money?
That makes the rule.
Makes the rules. I learned fast,
1 week,
Rez.
that's all it took. Hey, thanks for watching on Newsnet 5. Expanded coverage all week long.